It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You had a great line about the private sector landing on the moon.
Breaking news, for the first time in history, the private sector is 50 years behind the government.
That's a good line. He said it right before we went on the air, and I'm like, okay, that can't be just a statement that I heard off the air. You got to hear that one on the air.
Well, because it's the first thing when yesterday I was like, but we've done that. We've already, if the Elon Musk put a car in space. Remember that?
Yes.
It's still out there somewhere. And I think the battery probably needs to be recharged by now, but it's floating somewhere in space. If you're going to do something in the private sector, I don't know how innovative that is, by the way. It's certainly newsworthy or discussion worthy. But the private sector, I'm looking for them to go, nope, we landed on Jupiter. We didn't go with the moon. Everybody's done the moon.
I liked a meme I saw the other day. I'm paraphrasing it here, but it was in the form of a question. And it showed people around candles. What did Democrats use before candles? Electricity.
But seriously, okay, so we've talked about how sometimes you'll see it. We had fun with the whole wind-powered ship.
Oh,
it's called a sailboat. And my new invention, the solar-powered tanning bed.
How's that going?
It's going great. I have one in my backyard right now.
Is it on Amazon yet?
Not yet, but I do want to put it out there. I'm thinking about putting it on Facebook Marketplace, just putting a lawn chair up for sale. Solar-powered tanning bed is the listing. And maybe an upcharge of only, I don't know, $5. I don't.
Oh, what's your disclaimer on it?
Mm-hmm.
What are the side effects?
I don't need one.
Sunburn.
I don't need one.
If you don't put it on, you'll get sued.
It's Facebook Marketplace.
Nobody sues Facebook Marketplace.
Well, if you're shopping on Facebook Marketplace, you probably don't have money for a lawyer. So it's that mindset on the left, though, that, and I remember several years ago, this young people are discovering that they can take food that they made the night before to work with them the following day.
You're kidding. Wow.
It's called leftovers. And they can put it in a container and store it in their office in the refrigerator until it's ready. It's called taking your lunch to work. This money-saving tool is now the choice of many young people. We did that.
I will say, though, one of my favorites, I won't say my favorite, but one of my favorites has to be the time that you and it was probably in our pre-show meeting when we were reading the article about the new technology of the wind-powered ship.
Yeah, what I mentioned a minute ago. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
I mean that was
yeah.
Exactly.
No, that has to be the one.
That's why I brought it up.
Yeah,
you reminded me of that, and it was just when it's the enjoyment that we got out of that. You and I are looking at it, reading it, looking at each other. There's new materials that they use. They're not using the same materials. I'm sure lightweight materials for the mass and everything else are being used. And but when they're going the new technology, you and I look at each other and go, well, it's a sailboat.
We'll go back to the Pinewood Derby. The gravity-powered vehicle. Right?
Well,
right.
Has a tough time going uphill.
Well, listen. We're just solving one problem at a time here.
But downhill,
oh, you're golden.
Infinity miles to the gallon.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's called coasting.
Well, if I put wheels, maybe I'll confuse AOC with this one. If I put really big wheels on the back of it and small wheels on the front, is it going downhill all the time?
Yeah. Well, it would have to be. Otherwise, it's just not going. It's sitting. The new stationary car. But those are, honestly, you can apply, it sounds, hey, I bought one of those stationary cars. The kind that sits in front of your house because you can't afford to drive it.
Nothing.
Nothing. But look at it. Look at it. And, I was always intrigued by gliders, right?
Mm-hmm.
That idea. How they're launched, with the help of another plane. And then, from there, okay, how far can it go? As Ron White said, probably all the way to the scene of the crash. But I was always intrigued by that. Man, how, what's the longest flight of a glider? Never once did I think, hey, there's a new form of transportation. Because that's that's the leftist mind. You leave out all of, the engineering principles, and you just come up with this thought. Well, when they did that rendering of the wind-powered ship, it's a sailboat.
Yeah, because it looked more modern and sleek and everything else, but the concept is the same.
It had sails. Yeah. Now, the sails were designed differently. So if you want to talk about, improving the wheel, that's one thing. But you're not inventing a wheel. That's already been done. But they often approach it like that. Like, well, if we just reintroduce it to this generation, they'll buy into it.
That's why I think I could convince at least 10 to 15% of the people of my idea for the wind-powered plane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And just have a propeller plane and just say, see, this is a wind-powered plane.
Mm-hmm. See the turbines on the front?
See the turbines, yeah.
Yeah.
This powers itself. The wind turns the blades, which, generates the electricity, which then powers the plane. Mm-hmm. Now, everything I said there was a load of horse manure, but do you think I could convince 10 to 15? I'm telling you, I got a new goal in life. My new goal in life is to see how stupid and ignorant people are. Because I think I could convince 10 to 15% of the people that there's such a thing as a wind-powered plane.
I believe there are so many trolls on, YouTube and now TikTok. I was telling you off the air, Business Insider had this article about this couple on TikTok, and they're monetizing in big ways. And the couple, man and wife, they're trolling. It's all of it.
Is trolling?
Is trolling. It's all tongue in cheek, but they're getting legitimate responses. People thinking they're serious. And one of them was the mom saying, "Here's why we only give our kids a $20,000 budget for spending at Christmas." And people are like, "What?" And then the husband does this.
Oh, wow.
You know what?
Wow.
Watch this. I love watching. I love walking barefoot. So he cuts the bottom of his shoes off. So the top of his shoes are still on his feet, and now he's bare. And they're going, "You just ruined $150 pair of shoes to walk barefoot," and they're going crazy. I'm convinced that's actually been good. Now they're more, in my opinion, you should have gotten that from how they present, but I think there have been people out there for a while on YouTube, on TikTok and Instagram that are putting out these videos, especially shorts, where my wife and I watched this one guy, and he was like, if you do this and mix these two fruits, look at the beautiful tomato plant you'll grow. And we're about halfway through the second video, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is garbage. And he's got to be doing this to test how many people actually follow him and watch these videos. If you just plant it here and do this, like it was some kind of, miracle or magic trick. And then he said it was like, okay, here we are 6 weeks later. Yeah, no, you're not. And I firmly believe there are countless content providers out there that are just trolling to see how many views, because you don't have to have, I know there are rules on each of them, and they can flag it and demonetize, but otherwise you really don't have to have any kind of truth standard. You can do satire all day. You could troll like that all day and monetize that to no end if it caught on, with enough viewers.
I didn't even think of that. That could have been, if I was younger, I could have looked into that. If I was, 18 years old, I could look, do I want to go into radio? Is it going to be just podcasting? Well, how about premeditated and calculated trolling?
Oh, my gosh. The possibilities are endless. I mean, I honestly believe I could get away with the whole, hey, guys, brand new invention here, and here's my website, solar power tanning bed, check it out. And then people would issue serious responses to that.
My wind-powered plane?
Yeah. Listen here, we have a seriously.
Wind-powered plane?
And just do the walk around. It's a wind-powered plane. The new company is, we're about to launch. We have patent pending on this. And this is wind. And I mean, it would be relentless, the responses to that. And funny just reading the responses. Because people would just be up in arms. Just pretend for a moment that you're serious about it, and then it's on. And I firmly believe there have been those types of jokesters and trolls on YouTube and on other content sites for a long time, because to me it comes off more as obvious. It's like, okay, this isn't real.
And I could put a picture of one of the first passenger planes, the DC-3.
There you go, exactly. Right.
And say new modern plane, and have one of the DC-3s from 1935.
Right.
And put it out there and this is the new technology.
Wind powered, yeah.
And then, why is part of the landing gear behind the tail? Mm-hmm. Oh, that's the new technology.
Yes. Yeah,
and I'd explained it somehow. I don't know.
Listen, there's a patent pending. I can't get into proprietary things here.
Yes, proprietary.
And just have fun with it.
Now, engineers would rip me apart.
Well,
or understand. They would understand.
They would get it.
They would get it. They'd get
the critical thinkers would, I think, would finally get it. But I thought about, I watch a lot of the fishing channels on YouTube, and they do what's called a catch and cook. You catch a fish, and then you cook it up, right? Well, I always wanted to do, or they can do a hunt and cook, go hunting and cook something. I always wanted to do a hunt and cook video where I'm stalking, and there's some chickens in the background. And then, of course, I end up buying some chicken. You don't see that part in the video. you just see this, all of a sudden the screen goes dark and you hear a lot of cartoonish type chicken noises, and all of a sudden I'm cooking in the kitchen with the chicken, doing my own catch and cook. It's basically shop and cook. There, you could, and there would be people legitimately, not just PETA, legitimately upset with that. Yeah, and then we see the styrofoam container in the background. You went and bought that. It would be so much fun. It would be so much fun.
I just thought I actually have been. I was a great troller at one. I think I may have a career in this. I think I can retire and become a professional troller.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why
That
next.
might be a lot of fun.
866-90 Red Eye.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by Howe's Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
Considerations of corn supply, demand, and price for this coming marketing year, courtesy of USDA and economist Jake Villeman at this year's Ag Outlook Forum. In fact, supplies
are projected at a record 17.2 billion bushels. At sharply higher carry-in, more than offsets lower production, which is forecast at 15 billion bushels, 2% below last year's record level.
Corn use is forecasted higher than the previous marketing year based on growth of domestic use and exports.
Relatively firm global demand and lower U.S. prices are expected to spur exports 2% higher to 2.2 billion bushels in 24-25. However, stiff competition in the global marketplace, particularly from South America, will prevent further year-over-year growth.
Ethanol use is expected to increase marginally this year.
At the end of the year, this leaves us with a carryout of 2.5 billion bushels, the highest in 35 years.
With the season-ending average price forecasted at $4.40 a bushel, down 40 cents year over year. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, actually, 2 times I was a troll. One time, and I cannot remember the context, but I remember it was a woman caller, and I don't remember what the topic was, but I said, at the end of the call, I said, well, you're a fine Homo sapien.
Mm-hmm.
And she went nuts. I am not. I go, actually, you are. I am not. Hung up on me and called the owner of the station.
Yeah.
You know what your talk show host called me? He called me a Homo sapien.
Well,
I did not get in any trouble for that,
yeah.
for calling her a human being. But that was, the other one was, and I've talked about it before, but it was just so dang funny. It was when somebody called the show once, and this had, I don't know, I don't even know what year it was, maybe 2003, 2004, and we were talking about the Middle East. And a guy called me, and he goes, and we were talking about the UN and something to do with the UN in the Middle East. And the guy says, you don't know anything about the UN and how it actually operates or the leadership or whatever. And I said, sure I do. And I said, started going through, the Secretary Generals of the UN. I said, when Kofi Annan, I was the Secretary General at the time, and I brought, him up, and I said, then you had, before Boutros Ghali, and this happened when at that point during that administration, then Kurt Waldheim, and then U Thant. And I said, but really the best U.S. Secretary General ever, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, was Jar Jar Binks. And I said, and I went, and I just made up stuff as I went along. Jar Jar Binks did this, and he's the one that pulled this plan together with the Israelis and, the Palestinians and everything else. And he agreed with me. He goes, yes, Jar Jar Binks was the best UN Secretary General ever. And I just hung up. That was it. Man, I got...
That's all you need.
Yeah, I got responses for a month on that.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
Detroit Radio, he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Yeah, I think in polling, I think the at least for me, the story of the week to be looking at in polling is just the interesting fact that Newsom, and this was the two polls that were done both in Nevada and North Carolina. And we talked about this yesterday. Newsom is the Governor Newsom of California of the three. You're talking Biden, Harris, or Newsom. Newsom polls the lowest.
Yeah.
polling under Harris. I mean, and both in Nevada and North Carolina. Now, again, it's just two states, but interesting, just really interesting. And you and I wondering, is that why everybody's so low key? Why it's been low key? Because they do all their internal polls that we never see,
Right.
and they're doing them consistently. And so there has been so much angst over the last couple of weeks coming from Democrats about Biden, including this one. A former Obama fundraiser told Fox Business that the Democratic Party should move on from President Biden, while also taking issue with the major New York court ruling against former President Donald Trump. An Obama fundraiser, Miami Beach-based real estate developer Don Peebles, who remains good friends with Obama, said many Democrats were also led to believe Vice President Harris was to be the understudy of a transitional Biden to prime her to succeed him, but she has failed to impress. I think the Democratic Party should turn the page. President Biden was to be a transitional president. I even said it on Cavuto that I thought he would be president and Kamala Harris would be waiting in the wings, learning how to become president, Peebles said. Peebles said that instead Harris has disappointed many within the party, including himself. Well, when were you ever impressed by her? I have to ask this.
Based on what?
I mean, if you've come around to the right conclusion, but where in the hell was your head a few years back?
Mm-hmm.
When did anybody view her as somebody on the issues or in any type of debate that had her head on clearly? Whoever thought that? Remember, she was the first one out, wasn't she, in the primaries?
First week of December
Right.
of 2019.
Yeah. And was screaming racism.
And remember what led up to that. I mean, her campaign was falling apart. The money was gone. It was horribly organized. In fact, it wasn't organized at all. But the organization itself was just crumbling, and she was out. The Democratic Party rejected her first.
And remember, and then it came out, remember, she was saying it was racism.
Mm-hmm.
We went, oh, okay, so what you're saying is what we've said. The Democratic Party, now probably for different reasons, she's saying they're racist because they wouldn't support her. We've said because they practice identity politics.
Yeah.
For the last 30 years, very, very heavily. And that's where you judge people by the groups they're in, not by individuals, which, as we all know, racism.
Yep.
But people said that instead Harris has disappointed many, including him, and that it is time for the entire ticket to step aside if Democrats want a chance to defeat Republican nominee Trump. I don't see how Biden can beat Trump, people said. If all that's been thrown at the former president has been thrown at him, and he is still leading in the polls, it's telling us something about that Americans don't want this President Biden and this administration anymore, and it's time for him to move on for the good of the country. Peebles, a successful real estate developer like Trump, also weighed in on the $355 million punitive damages ruling by the New York State Supreme Court First District Judge against the former president. Peebles stressed his view has nothing to do with whether he likes Trump personally, but that on paper, It strengthens the narrative that the Empire State is a bad state to set up your business.
Mm-hmm.
It's another indication New York is not business friendly, said Peebles. He added that the ruling shows the legal system has been, quote, weaponized for political purposes, end of quote. Now, remember, this isn't just any ordinary Democrat. This is a huge fundraiser for Obama.
Yeah. It's so obvious, and internally, they're scrambling. But there is nothing they can do, and I really do believe that a lot of them are resigned right now to the fact that, all right, look, we can't save Biden. And if Trump wins, then let Trump inherit his mess. And whatever Trump does over those 4 years will erase all of that. We're hoping no one will remember, and we'll come in 28 and try again.
When I seen this article, he actually compared Trump to Martin Luther King, whom he said fell victim to a weaponized legal system also. Peebles maintained that if Trump is truly liable for the civil offenses he was found liable for, then there are untold numbers of other New York businessmen who have committed the same offense that has otherwise been considered victimless. No one else would have been sued for what Donald Trump was sued for with regards to his financial statements. His own lender, who they were submitted to, said they didn't rely upon them and that they would not have made a difference, and they want to do business with him again, Peebles said, referring to Deutsche Bank. Peebles concluded Trump will be successful in winning a reversal upon appeal and reiterated the law must be applied equally, even if the defendant is viewed unfavorably by the public or public officials. Not to say I don't like Donald Trump, but I'm saying that for political purposes, we cannot use our system for that purpose, he said. Which is true.
Well, because inevitably then it's going to get down to that being the case on both sides over and over again. They know there's no way for this to, go away if they were to keep this up, that eventually on the right, the right will come back and use their powers. Trump has said recently, we talked about it earlier this week, his idea of revenge is going in and doing the job and correcting everything that's wrong, fixing the problems. That's his idea of revenge. Well, you also have to consider the future isn't just about Trump. If you're on the left, well, this could happen to you. So if a judge just on a whim wants to take Trump off of the ballot, well, then in a red state, they can do the same with anybody on the left. And they have to know this. They do. It's whether or not they act on it.
This is a story that really gets to me, though. I mean, it's just like you just shake your head and go, wow. Here's a headline from Breitbart. Biden's team is signaling a more aggressive posture towards the press. Mm. And they talk about the fact that they went after the New York Times. And the White House objects to the framing of stories. The letter from Ian Sams, we had talked about this earlier, the spokesperson for the White House counsel's office, suggests that reporters improperly frame stories about the February 8th release of Special Counsel Robert Hur's report. And some of the analysis is, which of course was untrue. They didn't.
Right.
They didn't. But what I found interesting is they now feel, there's a feeling in there, because they went after the New York Times this week, too, for a couple of stories on his age and things like that, that they believe that, well, the media is always a good foil. So what you're saying is Biden attacking the liberal press, who has been easier on this president than any other president in my lifetime, running cover for him, putting up walls, not asking the right questions, that if they at all do anything that is viewed as not favorable to the president, if they are not political activists, if they forget that they are political activists that must support the narrative of the White House, and they happen to even ask a question, that we're going to get more aggressive with them. Well, how do you get more aggressive? Do you allow yourself to answer more questions and then get more aggressive?
Or do you just go back to answering nothing?
Yeah.
Taking no questions.
What is this going to be made up of? Just sending letters that the White House press corps sends back to you, sends you back a letter saying, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
And then the whole behind-the-scenes stuff.
Yeah.
And I thought the most interesting thing this week is how they're trying to bring back the Russia collusion hoax 2.0, we call it. I find that fascinating in a way because they used race for such a long time. And they still use race today. They say Biden did it. Biden did it just yesterday.
Yeah, sure.
That I knew racist. I knew these segregationists. The Republicans are way worse. Excuse me. You're number one. You could be the number one racist leader in the United States just from what you said about the Georgia election law itself in order to create hatred based on your lie, President Biden. You lied about the Georgia election law. It had nothing to do with Jim Crow.
Right.
You lied hoping that blacks would hate whites because whites were bringing Jim Crow back again, or Republican racist were bringing Jim Crow back again because that's what he called it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he lied about it.
Yep.
And this is where Republicans have to hit back. What are you talking about? Here's what this president did here. Talk about practicing identity politics. You could have a field day. Did they touch him yesterday on that? Nope.
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 Nope. He's going to get tough with the liberal media, Gary.
I mean, again, though, it might be, are you at the time now? Do the polls show that Republicans should just shut up and not get involved? Don't get sidetracked? That Biden is so bad that he's self-destructing on his own?
That's what I would do.
When you look at the polls right now, when you look at the polling out there, it now this is just a week old from the number of polls that were out this week. But if RFK Jr. stays in, he pulls from Biden.
Right.
And Trump is winning anyway. In every single battleground state, Trump is winning.
Mm-hmm.
And Biden's numbers are slowly going down. And then you see that Newsom is that's the other surprise, is that Newsom polls worse for the Democrats than anybody else.
Yep. Out of anyone.
Yep.
Worse than Kamala Harris.
Yep. Wow. 7 points less than Kamala Harris.
That's unreal.
Well, is that why Democrats are so fried right now? They realize we can't go to Newsom. If you can't go with Biden, maybe that's why Bill Ackman, who's the liberal that the billionaire who went after Harvard and everything else, but is against what Harvard is doing, and he's not an anti-Semite. Maybe that's why he talked about Dean Phillips as a shot at winning. You and I think were listening to it yesterday going, what is he, delusional?
Yeah, what?
But is that the case? Look, he's the only guy that you got left. Nobody else can poll. Even Newsom can't. Because if Newsom can't win, what other Democrat can win right now?
Honestly,
I don't know.
This late in the game, you just let Trump take it and hope that the GOP messes it up over the next 4 years, and you try and come back in 28.
I wonder what Manchin's internal polls showed.
Yeah, I can't imagine anything positive.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. What in the world, that Catherine Herridge story out there, the reporter from CBS who was let go, maybe even fired now. We thought it was part of a layoff, but CBS confiscated all of her records that she had, all of her confidential records and everything else. That never happens to a reporter. I mean, everyone, right. Even the liberal reporters are going, what the heck is going on here? She was working on a ton of stories, including Hunter Biden stories. Mm-hmm. And so the conspiracy theories now are flying all over the place. Is CBS going to give this to the FBI so they can go after Catherine Herridge's sources?
It's a great question.
One of the things, because why do you grab them? What is the reason?
Why else would CBS feel like they needed to have them?
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.